Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 54. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation, this Black Friday. Hope everyone had a happy and full Thanksgiving, watching a lot of football on the television, of course. And for Steelers fans, getting ready for Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m., against the Cincinnati Bengals, another AFC North Road matchup for Pittsburgh, 6-4, not trying to lose to backup quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks. And of course, with the new offensive coordinator duo of Eddie Faulkner, the actual interim OC, and Mike Sullivan, the actual play caller for this game. So Dave, how you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was really well. It went really well. And I have a full belly still and it's got a lot of food left in the refrigerator to eat on today, and got some more football later on this evening. The football games on Thanksgiving they were a little bit, they were duds overall, right? You know, one-sided for the most part. Green Bay. We talked about Jordan Love a couple of weeks ago, right? Ahead of that game, and talking about which quarterback would you rather have at the time. I remember talking a little bit about that. If Kenny Pickett comes out and has a game similar to what Jordan Love put up in that game against the Lions, I don't know. We might think about building a statue. He really was efficient in that game, and that's the Jordan Love that they kind of hope or had hoped that they had drafted there. He really looked good overall. So how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. And I'm a fan of the blowout games on Thanksgiving just because I can just sit back and like half pay attention to it and enjoy my just turkey sitting in my belly. So that's the one time a year I'm okay with a game not being competitive.
All right. Well, there were a lot of that on Thursday for sure.
I assume your favorite part was the Jack Harlow halftime show. I bet you were
really into that. I was tuned into that. Dolly, seeing Dolly Parton in a cheerleader. I didn't have that one on my bingo card either there. So anyway, onward we go.
I got to ask you something I never asked you before. Are you a fan of Creed? Because this is the time of year everyone talks about the 2001 or 2002 halftime show that they did, which I thought legitimately was really good. Are you a Creed fan and kind of like your Rock? Is that sacrilegious in terms of where you come from?
I played a lot of it and all. It had to learn, a lot of the songs and all like that. Not a huge fan of it overall, though. I don't queue that up on the YouTube machine or on the MP3s or anything like that. And generally, if it comes on the radio, I try to find something else to listen to.
All right. Point.
I think it was kind of oversold and at the time, and not a big Creed fan. I'm sorry. I probably lost some listeners there, but
so we have a heavy Creed demographic, I'm sure.
But you are a Creed fan, aren't you?
I think they're fine. I think like Hire's a solid song. I think there's some decent stuff. I don't listen to them religiously, but there's a couple of decent things out there. But Dave, what we are tuning into today are Steelers Bengals this Sunday. A little bit later in this show, we'll have a Bengals beat writer on. We're excited about it. That is Jay Morrison, who writes and covers the Bengals for Pro Football Network. You can follow him on Twitter at @ByJMorrison. Does a Bengals podcast for PFN every Tuesday. So we'll talk to him in a bit, get his perspective on these Bengals looking for a win just as desperately as the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we do that, though, Dave, let's talk about the injury situation for both these teams, primarily for Pittsburgh. According to their Thursday report, and of course the Friday final report will come out here in just a little bit by the time people listen to this. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, the only Steeler to not practice on Thursday, still out with that hamstring injury suffered in Week 8 against Jacksonville. 5 players limited on Thursday. That's George Pickens with a shin, James Pierre with a shoulder. Montravius Adams has returned to practice the last 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, limited with the ankle. Cam Hayward just kind of being managed with that rest and groin, and Nick Herbig limited Wednesday, Thursday with the hamstring. So not looking good for Minkah. Obviously, we'll check on Pickens, but I think this team will be mostly healthy in terms of its current roster, sans Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I was really hoping going into this week that, at some point, at least by Thursday, we would see Minkah, get something done, maybe on a limited or even a full capacity, and that obviously didn't happen. They're not going to come out and say whether or not he had any sort of a setback or anything like that. But man, I really thought that he wasn't able to play against the Browns. Maybe they just being extra careful with him to get him back for the Bengals game. But we've seen things change in the past late in the week, on occasion, but I'm not hopeful going into this Friday that we will see Minkah against the Bengals. So it might be, who knows? Hopefully a week from now, we're talking about him coming back.
So it looks like DeMonte Casey and Trenton Thompson will get the start. Thompson did not technically start the Browns game, but he played a majority of the snaps, and coaching staff seemed pretty impressed with his communication, tackling overall. I know some people will ask, Dave, why didn't Minkah just go on IR when back in week 8 after the injury occurred? Hamstrings can be so tricky. You might have had some optimism that maybe he could come back sooner, and so you just try to roll the dice on that. So hindsight 2020, of course, but those hamstrings, you just never know when they're going to perk up in the right direction.
Yeah, the other thing too is if you had any thought that maybe you would get him back during that span of time. Plus, you have to have a certain amount of, at least 5 inactive players in this team. While it did go through some, obviously, other injured players, it wasn't like they were hard pressed for a roster spot, especially when you have the ability to elevate a couple of players off the practice squad if you so choose. And we've seen them do a couple of elevations over the last couple of weeks as well too. So it was probably just a fact of they thought maybe there was a chance that he would be back within, the latter portion of the 4 weeks, and that obviously didn't happen. But it's not like they lost a roster spot overall because of generally being, you got Freiermuth back, and you got some of these guys back, and yeah, you had to go through the Montravius Adams. Long story short, they weren't in a dire roster spot need there.
What's your feeling on Adams? Does he come back? I mean, we'll get final game status today. He probably will be questionable if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Limited these last 2 days. Maybe this is the week he can come in and play 15 snaps as a backup nose tackle.
Yeah, look, I mean, you got Keanu Benton in there who's going to get probably the lion's share moving forward anyway there. So, it obviously could go either way. We'll see if he's able to go full on Friday. So, even if he does play, like you said there, it's more as a rotational piece there, and probably more generated to helping on some passing downs.
On the Bengals side, of course, Joe Burrow out for the season. Jake Browning will make his first career start at quarterback. The other injuries to note, and we'll talk about this with Jay in a little bit, but wide receiver T. Higgins is not trending in the right direction like Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's missed the last several games with a hamstring injury, has not practiced this week. Cam Taylor-Britt, their top corner, has not practiced either. Maybe he could have a chance, but looks pretty questionable on that. And I think BJ Hill's going to play in this one after that non-contact injury against the Ravens, which looks super scary. And he's a really important piece up front. So Higgins and Taylor-Britt, of course, with Burrow, seem to be their headlining injuries entering this game.
Yeah, boy, it looks a lot different than it did going into that Thursday game, right? Of the Bengals there. When you look at this team from a health standpoint, you obviously lose, a guy in Joe Burrow, and it's not looking great for T. Higgins at this point. And Cam Taylor-Britt, another one's really coming on for them. That doesn't look like he's going to play. So they looked, even though they've had the long week and all like that, the Steelers look, even though, obviously probably not going to have Minkah Fitzpatrick there, but the Steelers look like the healthier of the two teams right now.
They do. And just some news coming in right now, not relevant to the Steelers, but according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, the Commanders have fired Jack Del Rio, their defensive coordinator, after, of course, getting rolled by Dallas on Thanksgiving. And so Ron Rivera sounds like he's going to take over the defense, but of course, don't expect Ron Rivera to be the coach in 2024. So they might just try to ride the rest of this thing out.
All right.
All right, Dave, the coordinators were speaking on Thursday, and usually we're talking about Matt Canada and Teryl Austin. Of course, this was the first time in a coordinator fashion hearing from Eddie Faulkner. Mike Sullivan did not speak to the media, at least that we're aware of, not posted on Steelers.com. So it was Faulkner who has the lone title of interim offensive coordinator. Sullivan still has his quarterback's coach title, but we know he'll be the play caller on Sundays. I thought it was a really good first interview for Faulkner. Not that that's, I mean, you don't plan to win the interview. It's all about the results on Sunday and producing and winning and Pickett looking better. But I thought Faulkner said all the right things. I think defended Matt Canada, saying that's my friend, that's my guy. We as a coaching staff take responsibility for the struggles. It shouldn't all fall on Canada, but then focusing on Cincinnati and trying to keep things simple and not try to completely change this thing, but really focusing on details and just doing the little things to make this offense go.
Look, I thought he controlled that press conference pretty good overall. I thought he was real, obviously positive. I think he set the tone early with his opening statement, talking about Matt Canada, talking about how all of it's not on Matt Canada, and he looked comfortable. It didn't seem like, at least that portion of his job now, which is standing up there every week and talking to the media, was too big for him whatsoever there. I thought some of the messages that as we stated, there's not going to be sweeping changes with this offense. And he said in so many words, you're in the middle of the season here. There's not that much that you can change schematically overall. They will, we hope to see some things that we pick up on tape overall here. But one of the other main takeaways with him was communication and Mike Tomlin. That was something that Mike Tomlin hit on Tuesday, liking the fact that Eddie Faulkner is a good communicator, along with Mike Sullivan there, and then that the big onus right now is just trying to fix some of the minor things that they can fix in this offense moving forward.
In terms of what you might expect to see Sunday, did Faulkner say anything that hinted at that? I do think it was a little more catch-all and didn't specify too much about how this will work, which is fine. A, he wasn't asked about that in too much detail, and B, we'll just kind of see how the product looks on Sunday. But I don't necessarily get a sense of what may change for this game.
No, I don't think either one of us really expected to get that out of that. Anyway, not that there's. Look, is there things that they can do schematically? Ben Solik for the Ringer, I thought really had a nice video, 25 minutes or so, talking about some of the things or all of the things that he didn't like in what he's seeing from the Matt Canada run offense. Specifically, you talk about things with the motion and all like that. And you saw this stick out, and I don't know how much you highlighted this in your video the other day. I didn't get a chance to really watch all of that start to finish there, but some of the things they did with Allen Robinson with the motion, and this isn't new. What some of the problems that they've had with motioning some guys really right into the box and into the play, and creating more work specifically in the running game. He did a good job talking about, and you've talked about the usage of the Hank concept constantly since Matt Canada arrived here, and how they spam the living what out of that. And he really broke down how ineffective at times, and really some of the decision making that goes along with it. To me, it's more, I think some of the onus on Eddie Faulkner and Mike Sullivan this week is to tighten up some spacing. Maybe we see less motion, maybe. To try to scale it back a little bit, focus on communication. Look, you can't have some of the communication issues and number of men on the field. And I would think that more than anything, you try to strip some stuff stuff out of this, especially when it comes to the negative play aspect. Because one thing, and I don't know how much we talked about, I think we talked about this maybe on the live stream the other day here, even though you had a lot of good runs in this game overall for the Steelers, there were a lot of negative plays. What did I count? Like 9 when it came to the true running plays that this team had against the Browns. There were still 9 that went for 1 or fewer yards in that game that weren't successful. Now, you had 1 that was a 1-yard gain. That was the Kenny Pickett quarterback sneak, and that picked up the first down. So that's considered a successful play. But man, this goes back to and they had run a couple of games together there where the unsuccessful plays or the real negative plays they had kind of trimmed out of there. Going into this game, I think you try to strip some of those things down. And once again, it'll be interesting to see how much motion they actually use. And when they do it, can they eliminate that motion that's just spammy and really hurting more than helping?
Just motion with a purpose and a plan.
Right.
And sometimes it just felt like there was some empty motion for the sake of motion. I've not even seen the video, but I imagine this was highlighted. I meant to tweet this out. I probably will after the show. But there was one play, middle of the game, and you just watch Allen Robinson just running sprints, basically left to right, for no real purpose. They didn't even fake jet action off of it, and he's not going to touch the ball in those situations anyway. It's not a guy that is worked in the receiver run game, or not that often in the boot game. So just like, what is the point of that? You're just tiring your receiver out, essentially. So just everything with a purpose, everything with a plan, and simplifying that, I think will do this offense some good.
Yeah, and Solik even hit on, we talked about that one scramble by Kenny Pickett there on that third down where you had kind of that Yankee concept and where they're not doing enough to draw defenders away. And on that particular play, I think he had noted that Kenny Pickett had a 3-step drop and the ball wasn't out at the time, and the depth of the crossing on that particular play. At the time, Kenny Pickett's hitting the back leg, hitting the back step on that 3-step drop. Both the receivers were still crossing in the middle of the field, so he couldn't throw it at that. Little things like that.
Yeah. Although I can understand shorter drops when you're facing Myles Garrett, because if you take a 5-7 step drop, making your life harder on the tackle.
All right. Well, how about decreasing the depth of where those guys cross at? Little things like that. And how about something that will help draw the linebackers away a little bit? So, Solik pointed out that if you had a middle to the field route in that instance there, that would have kept the second level linebackers a little bit more occupied, where maybe Kenny Pickett can hit that at the back step of his drop there. Little deep. That's where I envision right now the focus has to be on this offense right now immediately with this change. Now you can obviously start adding on things moving forward, and I suspect they are going to try to add things onto that running game to help the passing game immediately here in this game against Cincinnati. But some of the others, how about tighten up what you do well,
Sure.
Or tighten up some of the things that should work that you already do, things like spacing, things like mixing up some route concepts to occupy some defenders. So it's more of I view this week more as another quick self rescout here on this overall. So once again, I didn't, and Eddie's not going to come out here and tell us things that they're going to change and things that they're going to add and maybe take away there. But just kind of strip down what you do and do the things that you do well and tighten up some of the other things that aren't working well.
One other thing that caught my attention from Faulkner was he harped on he's a detailed guy. He's really about getting the little things right. And of course, every coach says that. Every coach professes that. That should be their goal. But maybe this offense, in some respect, wasn't as detailed as it should be. And again, making those big changes to the playbook can be hard. But I go back to, and we should have probably had that conversation. That's my mistake when the comments first surfaced in that Packers game or ahead of it. Jay Sternberger, the former Steelers tight end, remember he talked about that in the Canada playbook. You have your route, it would just be okay. You got a slant, you got a 5-yard out like that. That's all it was. And when he said whenever he was in Green Bay with LaFleur, it was really detailed of we're going to run this route at 5 yards, and if the wait for the slant, it's just you'd have real coaching points on your individual route. So I think you see kind of a lack of route running by these receivers as well, lack of detail. And I don't know if Faulkner can really change all that instantly, but just having some more detail on real specific coaching points. To me, I'm a big fan of the adage, aim big, miss big, aim small, miss small. If you can get detailed and as granular as possible, then you're going to have a less margin for error, and those guys are going to be very clear about what they have to do.
Yeah, look, I read an article, maybe it was The Athletic, I think, about Brian Daboll and how Brian Daboll does such a great job of explaining to his quarterbacks and his players of what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it.
Yeah, the why.
The why, all these receivers know concepts and all like that, but do they really know against a zone or a man or cover 2 or cover 1 why exactly they're running this concept here, or why this route combination can be effective, and what you're we don't know to what degree that Matt Canada was, maybe maybe there's some offensive coordinators that just assume players know that kind of stuff. But if you can explain, the better that you can communicate, because all these guys should know their routes and all like that. But
sure.
If you and the play and all like that. But if you can better get these players and the quarterback specifically knowing the why of what you're trying to do there, could help tremendously. And even if you have 10 of 11 that know the why, you need to have all 11 knowing the why. Little things like that. So maybe that can be a focus more, like you stated, on the details and the communication aspect right now, and this week specifically, of trying to let these guys know not only to do what they do better, but why exactly you're trying to do what you're trying to do on offense with some of these schemes.
And of course, you don't want to overload information and slow these guys down. There's a line to walk there, but you can still give them enough information in a few words and still help them understand the goal of the play or some minor coaching point. Again, I go back to that adage of aim small, miss small, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but there was the story that Bill Walsh, the great offensive mind for the 49ers in the NFL, some coaches would say on a slant route, just hit the receiver in the chest. But Walsh would say, I want you to hit, whatever it is, Jerry Rice between like the inside of the 8 and the outside of the 0 on his jersey. Give a real specific, clear aiming point. So not just the chest, but the exact area of his jersey. And that creates a clear picture for the quarterback and understanding of, okay, this is exactly where I want the ball. And even if you miss a little bit, you're still going to be in the vicinity as opposed to just throw it in his chest. And so stuff like that, I think, could be helpful for these guys. I think maybe for Canada, coming from the college game where these guys, it's a larger roster, guys aren't around as long. Obviously, the football IQs aren't there. They're not veteran 30-year-old players. You don't have some of those things because you're trying to keep things super simple so the whole group understands it. But NFL level, it's all about details, about being really specific and knowing these guys can handle this information.
I guess people are listening and could be listening and saying, well, that all sounds great what you're talking about here, but why wasn't this happening with a Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner before now? Well, those guys are position specific coaches and probably don't obviously don't conduct the overall meetings and all like that. So I would envision that, with Eddie Faulkner probably leading the meetings now, maybe, more attention to detail possibly in these meetings. It was my takeaway.
Sure. And it's a fair critique to say, hey, it's the same coaching staff that's still running the show. And so they have to prove it. And as you always say, Dave, don't tell me about the labor pain. Show me the baby. I mean, the results are what matters. If this offense has not produced results, the same criticism will be there, and rightfully so. So I think Faulkner understands that. So I'm just trying to, pull something from this interview to talk about and something that kind of caught my attention.
And look, maybe to some degree, the players had tuned out Matt Canada for the most part,
The frustration was there, yeah.
Because maybe not having maybe the way he was delivering his message weekly and about the game plan, and just their overall confidence that we talked about possibly with some of these players on offense and all like that. So, look, I mean, we're not going to be able to talk about anything further about this offense really until we see more of it moving forward without Matt Canada. And
right.
Hopefully we do see some things that go, oh, okay, well, at least, maybe motion, whatever motion they were using in this game was, and I think you put it perfect there, with purpose.
Mm-hmm. Everything with purpose. And on the site, Steelers Depot, I have a checklist of just 4 things I want to see this offense do schematically post-Canada, and we've mentioned some of these before: better constraint plays, utilization of more interior people. You'd like to see some middle of the field, but just getting the ball. I mean, Calvin Austin, since week 7, has 3 receptions. Allen Robinson has 5 catches his last 5 games. No tight end has more than 41 yards in a game this season. It's hard to run your whole passing game just through your 2 outside guys in Johnson and Pickens. The run game the pass game should start there. That should be the primary focus of it, but it can't be the entire focus. It feels like it is right now. That makes life tough on your quarterback. Situational play calling, of course, very important. The weighty moments, I don't think Canada really ever excelled there. And then more actual concepts opposed to these mirrored independent routes of, okay, just a couple of comebacks, couple of out routes mirrored together. You're not putting defenders in conflict. You're not really creating reads for your quarterback. And when your quarterback is struggling, you need those things.
I think if you're a fan and you're looking forward to this game, some of the things we've already talked about, obviously you want the run game to keep functioning the way the run game has functioned without these negative plays that we saw, especially the volume of you. I mean, you're still going to probably have some negative plays in there. You want the volume of negative, specifically run plays, to go down. You want to still see you be able to run the ball overall as good as you have these last couple weeks. Second, I don't think you're going to see a Christmas tree passing chart like you saw Dak put together, Dak Prescott in that game yesterday, but you would like to see the middle of the field utilized, some more than what you've seen it so far. Shot plays, you got to see the ability to be a little bit more creative with some of your shot plays. And then, as we've talked about ad nauseum, we got to see this offense convert these third downs more regularly, and specifically in situations where they're 3rd and 5 yards or fewer to go.
Right. I'm with you. And I don't have the percentages, but Pittsburgh on the season, excluding quarterback kneels, 49 rushes that gain negative or 0 yards. That's around top 10 worst in football, and Pittsburgh's closer to the bottom in rush attempts. So from a percentage standpoint, it's probably one of the highest percentage of negative plays, rushing plays in football. So that has to be cleaned up for a run-heavy team.
Yeah, look, I mean, 2nd and 11, and second, anything that puts you behind the chains on those early downs, especially because then it puts so much onus on the 2nd down play to even get yourself maybe in a 3rd and 5 or fewer situations. And just overall, they have not done a great job of converting any 3rd down situation there. So I think if we come out of this game with the run game specifically having negative plays of, they only had 2 or 3 negative plays, that's that helped. It can't help but help this offense overall, I don't think. And then it goes without saying that circling back to what Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday there, man, we got to score more points to help engineer. I'm going to go full Matt Canada on you again here. You got to put more points on the board here to help this, to help the overall plan of engineering victory come to fruition there.
Sure. And I'm looking up right now Pittsburgh's numbers on first down because that's been a criticism, I think, under Canada for many years, his entire tenure, where Pittsburgh has been one of the worst teams on first down in football. This year, they're averaging 4.8 yards per play on first down, and that's about 27th in the NFL. And they've hung around 30th to, I think they're dead last over Canada's entire tenure on first down. So, you got to find the rhythm early. You got to be in second and manageable, especially for a third down offense that has been just abysmal the last 2 weeks.
Do you put Jaylen Warren on the field more in this game and the ball in his hands more in this game?
Yes.
You're not going to.
How do you not?
Yeah, you're just not going to bench Najee. I'm not suggesting doing that, but man, that's your hot hand right now.
Right. I mean, you can't have Jaylen Warren have 9 carries and get out snapped by Najee in a game where Warren was the guy. I thought Najee ran fine in that game. I thought early,
Sure.
I think he's run well overall this season. The big plays aren't there, of course, like Warren's capable of. I'm not knocking Najee, but Warren's really giving you some juice, some spark right now. And that Bengals run defense is pretty soft. They've not done well this year, so there's a chance for some big plays against them.
Look, use Najee as the hammer later in the game when you have hopefully a 7 or an 8 point game after using Jaylen at that point, touching the football 17 times, 16 times.
It's a question for our Friday 5 today later on the site, but who will get the first carry on Sunday against the Bengals? Harris or Warren?
I'll probably go Najee because you don't want to hurt his feet. You don't want to upset the apple cart too much. But after that first play, I think I get Jaylen on the field and the ball in his hands for the next 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think Najee will still technically start, still technically get the first carry, but I think the committee will still exist, but now start leaning towards Jaylen Warren, whereas it's been slightly leaning towards Harris throughout most of the season.
And I think it's important to reiterate before we get retermed Najee haters here. Najee has done very well these last, as part of this run game resurgence. It's just you've got more pop when you have Jaylen and the football in his hands.
If you look from a broken tackle perspective, the top 2 backs in football are essentially Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. Warren's numbers are better, but Harris is right behind in terms of those metrics, total broken tackles, broken tackle percentage, things like that. So those guys have run really hard, but you're getting some of the bigger plays. Najee's had more this year than last year in terms of explosive run plays.
Oh, look,
that's been there.
Yeah, look, and that's something we talked about when it comes to Najee since he came out of college, right? So not disappointed in any way, shape, or form that we're seeing that. It's just Jaylen's got pop to him right now, and he's a hot hand. You got to get the ball in his hands as many times as possible. What was the stat that you had on him and the Ravens?
Since 2017, only 2 running backs in the NFL have rushed for 125 yards or more on single-digit carries. They both have happened this year over the last couple of weeks. That's Jaylen Warren against the Browns and Keaton Mitchell of Baltimore a couple weeks ago, I believe, against the Seattle game. I think it was. Only 2 guys to do it since 2017, both in the AFC North, both undrafted. I think you hear a fungible comment coming from you, Dave.
All right. You teed that one up for me, didn't you? You know my feelings about running backs, but you got to go with your high. Long story short, I want to see the ball in Jaylen's hands more than we saw it in the game against the Browns.
Me too. And fun fact, since 2010, only 3 running backs in the NFL have rushed for 125 plus yards on single-digit carries. Warren, Mitchell this year, and in 2016, Jeremy Hill of the Bengals, also in the AFC North. And like Warren, I should say, Hill had a 74-yard touchdown in that game. So fun with numbers is my stats of the weird of the week. All right, Dave. Teryl Austin speaking to the media, less fanfare with him, but Austin had a lot of valuable things to say, praising the inside linebacker room of Landon Roberts, of Michael Walker, and talking about the veteran experience to Blake Martinez and Miles Jack. What do we call this? Miles Jack, Electric Boogaloo or something. This is his take 2, whatever it is, in his return to the veteran experience that Martinez and Jack will bring this team.
Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting to see what happens with Leonard still out there, cleared waivers and all like that. But at least they're getting some veteran guys in there that have played a lot of ball. It sounds like we might be a week or two away from seeing Myles Jack, but I have a feeling at some point we're going to see both those guys on the field. Blake in some role, Blake Martinez and Myles Jack.
It did sound like, though, I should pull up the exact quote, but Austin was saying, if we suffer another catastrophic injury, then those guys can hop in. So does that mean that those guys won't play until somebody, were to get hurt? It essentially implying that Walker's still going to be able to be the guy until, God forbid, another injury occurs.
Yeah, it's possible. Now, look, Landon Roberts did everything and more that you wanted him to do against the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
So
he was great.
And he was great. Walker, obviously, as we've talked about, has played a lot. For a guy coming in being asked what he was asked to do, he had some experience on an NFL filled with 1,000-something snaps already at that point there. But is this insurance?
It sounded like it to me. Obviously, these guys have to get up to speed, and Jack's got to get in shape and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we'll see how it looks.
Let's see. Percentage-wise, was Porter on Cooper about as much as he was on DeAndre Hopkins? He said, yeah, probably it'd be interesting to see what happens with Jamar Chase this week. We've talked about kind of envision him. He says, was he asked specifically about Porter following Chase?
He was, but he did not answer because Austin said, why would I tell you that information? I expect Porter to be on Chase quite a bit, especially if T. Higgins does not play, which seems likely.
All right. What other takeaway did you have? He thought Trenton Thompson represented himself pretty well, and I think the tape kind of backs that up overall. You'd like to see Thompson come away with that takeaway in that game. But I thought overall Thompson represented himself well.
Yeah, I thought the communication from the secondary overall was pretty clean. I think for all the moving pieces, just from the personnel standpoint, and they played a lot of different packages in that game. They were going 3 safety sets against 13 personnel, and they were, having some kind of 3-4 nickel packages with 1 safety and 3 corners against 11. So you're kind of rotating a lot of people in different looks. And I just thought the communication seemed pretty clean for all these pieces, and just dealing with everything he had to deal with in this game.
All right. Anything else Teryl Austin said that hit you?
I don't want to belabor the point. I wish he was asked about Mark Robinson. I just want to get the input there. I mean, I guess everything that can be said has been said, but no, that covers it on Austin. How about Myles Jack? Is he the most interesting man in the world, Dave? He's flying planes. He's becoming
owning a hockey.
Owning the Allen Americans, and he's back playing football.
Yeah, look, I just wonder how much he has left in the tank, really, and really Blake Martinez as well too. So, but I mean, you get what you get this time of year. It will be interesting to see if they make any play whatsoever for a guy like Leonard.
Right, he's still out there.
And really, you still kind of wonder where he's at health wise and at this point in his career.
Did we know that Myles Jack had surgery mid-season last year? I forget. Was that a thing that was reported? Was it? Because he had mentioned that, Jack, that he had, I think, groin surgery. Was it during the season?
I can't remember.
I don't remember either. Anyway, but we know he certainly was hobbled and not running well, and so hopefully just better health this year can obviously help. All right, Dave. I think it's a good time to take a pause here and get with our beat writer of the week. That man is Jay Morrison, who covers the Bengals for the Pro Football Network. You can and should follow Jay on Twitter @byJMorrison. Check out his podcast every Tuesday on the Pro Football Network. Let's take a pause and come back with Jay.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday, and that, of course, means we have a beat writer on who covers the Steelers opposition. This week, week 12, divisional game, Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. And we are pleased to be joined by Jay Morrison. You probably recognize the name. He's been covering the Bengals for many, many years, I think with the Cincinnati Enquirer and then the Athletic. And then right now he is the beat writer covering the Bengals for Pro Football Network. You can follow Jay on the Twitter machine by Jay Morrison. It's BYJAY Morrison. And we hope you reach out and let him know that you heard him on the podcast. So with that, the day after Thanksgiving, we know his time is valuable. Jay, welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Jay. Big game, obviously, AFC North game this week. And look, coming off of a long week for the Bengals, this was really kind of the game that you looked, at least heading into that game last Thursday with the Bengals are thinking, man, maybe they can get back in this thing. Obviously, the unfortunate wrist injury with Joe Burrow in that game has really changed the complexion moving forward here. They're going with Jake Browning moving forward here. Just your overall thoughts now, kind of a 30,000 foot, look, kind of reset, if you will, of this Bengals team with, look, you lose a guy with, and Joe Burrow to that kind of injury. Now it really shakes things up, but give us kind of a look and overview on the Bengals coming out of this long week here as they prepare to host the Steelers.
Yeah, I think they're kind of a dangerous team right now. It's like they're playing with house money. Nobody expects them to do anything now that they lost Joe Burrow. And, obviously he is the face of the franchise. He is what makes this team go. But you don't go to back-to-back AFC championship games and a Super Bowl with just one guy leading you. This is a really talented roster. And, big question mark with Jake Browning, what he can do. Obviously, he's not going to be as good as Joe Burrow. He doesn't have the time on task where he's a very intelligent guy and understands defenses, but he hasn't been in the fire to see the pre-snap looks and then how things change and all that stuff that goes into the experience of playing the quarterback. This is his first NFL start. The Thursday game against Baltimore were his first meaningful snaps. This guy's been in the league since 2019. He's been a practice squad lifer. So he can make plays with his feet. He's very elusive in the pocket. He can make throws on the run. He doesn't have the arm Joe Burrow has, but he has the weapons. And that's why I think this could be a dangerous team. I don't think that this is not an ideal matchup, obviously going against a great Steelers defense for him to kind of dip his toe into the starting waters. But I do... one thing that struck me about that game against Baltimore, Jake Browning averaged 10.6 air yards per attempt. Joe Burrow has never done that in any game in the NFL, even in 2021 when they were catching everybody by surprise, lighting everybody up with all those deep balls to Jamar Chase. Browning's not afraid to take shots. He's not afraid of much of anything, and I think that makes for a dangerous situation for an opponent coming in not knowing quite what to expect from this guy.
Man, having an air depth target like that, we don't know what that is right now in Pittsburgh. Look, when you turn on the film, obviously a small sample size there at the end, when he took over for Burrow in that game. But Alex and I were talking ahead of time there. He's not afraid to throw to the field. It didn't look like it was to the middle of the field. It didn't look like it was too big for him overall. And even though people, the name Jake Browning, it doesn't, people don't know a lot about him. Like you said, he has been around the league here for a little bit now. And obviously the game plan was geared around what Joe Burrow does. And for him to come in, we saw a lot of RPOs and you saw him try to, immediately come into the game, get him some easier throws there. What is one of the, just kind of the biggest thing, and maybe you hit on it already, of what and have seen out of Jake Browning so far? Was it just the ability to push the football down the field and throw to all areas of the field and the athleticism? Is that kind of the things that have stuck out about what you know about him at this point?
Yeah, it's more so the athleticism. That's when he really opened some eyes last year in the preseason, making plays, scrambling, making throws on the run. The pushing the ball down the field, I think it's important to note, but you also have to remember that game was out of hand. And so he didn't really have much to fear. It's like you might as well take some shots down the field and try to get something going. What I think a lot of people that if anybody that's not familiar with the Bengals that went back and watched, or even the Bengals fans, they look at what Jake Browning did in the preseason. And yes, he made some plays with his feet, but overall it wasn't good. What people need to remember is when he was playing in the preseason, he was playing with second and third string guys. This offseason, it was a battle for that backup spot between him and Trevor Siemian. And I think I think a lot of people expected Trevor Siemian to win that job, and he did not. And it's not like he lost it. Jake Browning won that job. So they were alternating snaps or halves, I should say, in the preseason. So either Browning was out there with the second string guys or he was out there with the third string guys, and the offense just never did much in the preseason. But what we saw, the beat writers, the people that were at training camp every day, when he was taking all those first team reps in practice because Joe Burrow was out with the calf injury, and even last year when Burrow was out with the appendectomy, Browning got way more snaps in training camp than he would normally. He looked pretty good. I mean, the offense got the better of the defense about half the time in training camp when he had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, all those weapons at his disposal. So he's a guy. There's no fear. It's not going to be too big for him. And they have said that even though this offense was designed around Joe Burrow, the playbook is wide open, and that yes, they will ask Jake what he likes. Brian Callahan, the offense coordinator, had a funny line in that Baltimore game. Once he came in after a couple series, they're like, what do you want? What do you want? And Browning's like, I don't care. Just call it. Whatever you call, I'll run it. And he felt comfortable with anything. He doesn't want it dumbed down for him just because he doesn't have the experience. So I think that is a big part of this, is finally getting to see him with all the weapons around him, minus T. Higgins. It doesn't look like T. Higgins is going to play.
Real quick before I turn it over to Alex here, we noticed that T. Higgins, it doesn't look like he's trending toward playing here. Maybe you've got some better information there. I know Sam Hubbard's banged up, and one of their corners in Cam Taylor-Britt, who's been fun to watch, is a little bit banged up too. Can you give us I know it's Friday, and Friday's a big practice, and the injury report will tell us a lot about that later this afternoon. But what's your outlook on injuries for this team heading into this game?
Yeah, they seem optimistic about Sam. He's missed 2 games with an ankle injury. He was limited the last 2 days in practice. Today will be a walkthrough. I would imagine he'll be listed as a full participant. I think we'll see Sam play. He is one of the best edge guys in the league when it comes to defending the run. I mean, he does a good enough job rushing the passer, but he's terrific against the run, and they've really missed him the last couple games. Both Houston and Baltimore ran all over this defense. So that'd be big if they can get him back. Cam Taylor-Britt, as you mentioned, he's got 4 interceptions. He's been really good since he took over as a starter midway through last year. Has not practiced. I don't know if we're going to see him. I think they'll be more patient with him because they drafted DJ Turner out of Michigan in the 2nd round, and he started the last 6 games opposite Cam Taylor-Britt, while Chidobe Awuzie, last year's starter, has still kind of been working back from an ACL and a back injury. So I'd be surprised if Cam Taylor-Britt plays. I think you're going to see Awuzie and DJ Turner be the starters on Sunday, and then Higgins, it just doesn't. He's missed 2 games with a hamstring. He hasn't practiced yet. It'd be surprising at this point. Again, just going through a walkthrough today, even if he goes full, I think they're going to hold him out at least 1 more week.
Sure, it's a similar vibe with Pittsburgh and Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's been out since week 8 with his hamstring injury. To go back to the offense, Jay, looking at the offensive line, Orlando Brown Jr., the big name brought in, how has he done his first year with the team, and how has Jonah Williams made that transition to the right side? I think he was initially resistant to the idea, but then, of course, had to make that move. Sounds like he's held his own.
Yeah, that may be the matchup of the game, is Jonah against TJ Watt, because as you mentioned, Jonah's been a career left tackle, and TJ doesn't line up on that side very often at all. So this is going to be his first heavy dose. And Jonah's been a serviceable guy through his career, but when he's gone against the likes of Myles Garrett and those elite guys, he's not done well. And I think that's a big reason why they made the switch. They brought in Orlando Brown. I would argue Jonah's probably been their best lineman this year, making that switch to right tackle. He's looked really good. He's making a lot of money for himself. I don't see him in the Bengals plans moving forward. He might be the best tackle available in free agency. It's whether a team wants to put him back on the left side or put him at right, we'll see. But he's had a really good year. Orlando's been serviceable. I mean, not bad, not great, not what I think they expected when they paid him all that money, but good enough. The real issue is the interior. Alex Kapp has kind of taken a step back this year. And then Cordell Volson, who they started as a rookie last year, they were really hoping for a big leap this year in his 2nd year, and it's kind of going the other way. So could be a big day for Cam Hayward and the interior guys for this Steelers pass rush, because that's where a lot of the pressure has been against Burrow in the first 10 games, has been coming up the middle, more so than off the edge.
I remember Hayward welcoming Volson to the NFL last year in the week 1 game. So we'll see how the matchup looks this time around. to kind of bounce off what Dave was talking about with the receivers, maybe not focusing on this game, but just big picture, what does the future of that Bengals receiver room look like? I assume they want to keep Chase at some probably top value deal. How many years does Tyler Boyd have left? He's a free agent after this season. What's the future of T. Higgins? Do you think this room will be broken up? That's been so consistent for a couple of years. Will this room look much different in 1 to 2 seasons?
Yeah, I think next year, I think we've seen Joe Burrow throw his last pass to T. Higgins. I don't see them bringing T. Higgins back. I fully expect Jamar to get a reset the market deal this coming off season when he's eligible for that extension. There's no way they're going to let that guy go. They've already got obviously a ton of money in Burrow, a ton of money in Orlando Brown. They've paid Sam Hubbard. They've paid Trey Hendrickson. They've got a lot of big contracts out there. I don't see where there's room to have that much money invested in 2 wide receivers. And I think T is going to be the guy that's going to be elsewhere. And Tyler Boyd as well. They drafted Charlie Jones in the 4th round. He's been dinged up with a thumb injury. He's been terrific as a punt returner. We haven't really seen him much as a receiver, but he's the slot receiver heir apparent. Maybe if Tyler Boyd sees, he knows he's at the end of his career. If he sees that this is the best chance to win a ring and stick around here, and he takes a team friendly 1-year deal, I could see him sticking around. But more than likely, I think you're going to see both Higgins and Boyd gone next year, and it's going to be Chase and some newcomers.
When you flip and look at that defensive side of football, that those guys up front have, and you already hit on it, Sam Hubbard, to be interesting to see if they get him back. BJ Hill playing well, Reader. We all know what Trey Hendrickson can do, and those 2 inside linebackers. Logan Wilson and I know he's in the news lately with the hip drop tackles and stuff like that. But Logan is one of the top inside linebackers in the league, and he always seems to have big games against the Steelers from my memory there. The Steelers obviously have had a resurgence in their running game, and they'll probably try to lean on that a little bit more. What is the biggest matchup in your eyes, especially if a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't play? I think they've been playing a lot of zone, it looks like, overall in the defense, and probably will play even a little. Kenny Pickett's just struggled, get some zone looks anyway, so it wouldn't be surprising for Lou Anarumo to come out and play a lot of zone in this. But what is kind of the biggest matchup, maybe, or something that the Steelers should try to exploit? We expect them to run the ball, or at least try to run the ball a lot in this game, but what is something they can exploit on that defense?
Yeah, I would say the over pursuit. The Bengals are terrible on every run metric you can find, and they've had trouble with missed tackles, but overall, that's the biggest problem has been these cutbacks where they string things out and guys make cutbacks and there's no backside help and it gets out for these huge gains, and they lead the league in explosive runs allowed and explosive plays overall allowed. And I just think that if Jaylen Warren has that shiftiness where he can take it, stretch it out, and then cut it back, and find some big chunks that way. You mentioned it, the linebackers have been really good. They paid both of those guys too. They paid Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson this offseason. They've been solid, but the secondary is young. And it's not just DJ Turner, the rookie 2nd round pick. Cam Taylor-Britt's in his 2nd year. Dax Hill is in his 2nd year. Last year's 1st round pick, but he played 17 snaps last year. So he's basically a rookie. And now they've got Jordan Battle, the rookie 3rd round pick, has taken over. This will be probably, they're not committing to it, but I fully expect to see him make his first start on Sunday. So it's that back end where they are struggling with the missed tackles and the containment. And if the Steelers can kind of reverse field and find some stuff that's not there initially and get some big chunk plays, which I know has been a struggle for that offense last week's 74-yarder aside, I think that's an area where they can really exploit the Bengals defense.
Steeler fans are obviously real familiar with Mike Hilton. How has he played this year?
He's been all right. They use him as a safety a lot on 3rd down, so he's a little bit out of position where he's not that full-time slot corner. Still a solid slot guy. I think he's taken a little step back. Age has maybe caught up with him a lot, but he's a leader on this team. He does have an important role, and we haven't. they bragged about him. He bragged about himself, the best blitzing slot corner in the league. And we just haven't seen a lot of that this year, which is weird because Lou Anarumo is blitzing more this year than he has in the past, but it's been more with the linebackers or with those outside corners coming off, or the safeties. So I know Mike always gets up for these games against the Steelers. I would think Pittsburgh should expect to see his best this week, but overall, it's just been, maybe I don't want to say so-so year. Maybe that's a little bit of a knock on him, but he hasn't been as good as he's been the last 2 years.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, just to talk about the safety pairing, because I thought one of the biggest losses any team suffered this offseason was going from Jesse Bates and Von Bell and losing both those guys, Bell to Carolina, Bates to Atlanta. You've kind of touched on it with Hill, a bit of Hilton, but how have they tried to replace, I think, two really big shoes to fill?
Yeah, so Dax has done really well. It's he makes young mistakes. The bigger miss, they went and they got Nick Scott from the Rams, a 1-year starter, a 7th-round pick, a career special teams guy. Gave him a 3-year deal, but it's basically they can get out of it after this year pretty easily. It'll end up being a 1-year, $4 million deal. They signed him hoping he could kind of bridge the gap until Jordan Battle was ready. Battle hadn't come along as well as they had hoped. Nick Scott's really struggled. He's out of position a lot. He misses a lot of tackles, gets beat for passes. It's just not been a good season for him, and it's really hurt them. I think they've gotten what they expected from Dak, where his athleticism kind of makes up for some of the youthful mistakes, but that's not been the case with Nick Scott. And in that Baltimore game, it was 11 snaps into the game. The Bengals got hit for a crucial 12 men on the field penalty. Nick Scott was that 12th man. Lou Anarumo said it was his fault because of the way he was switching the safeties, but the way he yelled at Nick when he came off the field, it didn't look that way. Nick did not play again in that game, and Jordan Battle came in, finished with a career-high 11 tackles, made some really nice open field tackles against Lamar Jackson and Keaton Mitchell and those guys. And that's why I think we're going to see a change on Sunday, and we're going to see Jordan Battle. If he doesn't start, he's definitely going to play the bulk of the snaps, but I expect to see him start, and it's going to be the new era with Dax Hill and Jordan Battle against the Steelers.
My last question for you, Jay, then I'll have Dave finish things out. How do you, just big picture, define this 2023 Bengals season? Is this just the Joe Burrow got hurt a lot season, hurt at the start of the year with the calf, obviously now out for the season? Is it almost hard to evaluate what the season was or could have been just because of the quarterback injury?
Yeah, it really is. He was a shell of himself early in that 1-3 start. They went out to Arizona on the opening drive in Arizona. You saw him for the first time get out of pocket on purpose and stick his foot, that injured right calf, in the ground, throw back across his body for a touchdown pass, and everybody's like, okay, he's back. And they rip off 4 straight wins, and everybody's thinking, okay, this is when the Bengals get going. And then that Houston loss was a killer because it really dinged their playoff chances. And then the following week he suffers the wrist injury, and it's going to be really hard to evaluate this season as a whole. I mean, that's a huge asterisk where Burrow wasn't healthy for camp. He wasn't healthy for the first games of the regular season, and now he's going to miss the last half of the season. Overall, it's a disappointment. I don't think anybody expected this team to be 5-5 at this point, and basically looking. I mean, they're not going to be mathematically eliminated if they lose to the Steelers on Sunday, but it's going to be almost impossible for them to get back in this. That would put them at 0-4 in the conference or in the division, and 1-6 in the conference. So even if they were to run the table, you're still talking about losing every tiebreaker against any team with the same record.
Obviously, a lot of eyes, will be on Jake Browning at quarterback, and I would expect the Bengals to try to run, and I would expect the Steelers to try to shut down the run first and foremost. And if T. Higgins indeed does not play, we're kind of thinking we might see Joey Porter Jr. follow Jamar Chase around and then do some bracket stuff on him to try to take him away. I guess where I'm going with this is Tyler Boyd, along with obviously Jake Browning for obvious reason here. Is Tyler Boyd kind of the key guy in this game, that if they got a big game out of Tyler Boyd, this could kind of be enough to turn the tables in this game?
Yeah, I think he can have a big game. I think the key is going to be Trenton Irwin. He's a guy that last year when Jamar was out, stepped up and had some huge games. And you see this all the time. A backup quarterback comes in and he leans on those backup receivers that he has the rapport with in practice.
Good point.
And so that was the first throw he threw when he came in. The first ball he threw was to Trenton Irwin in that Baltimore game. And then the other thing is Tanner Hudson has been on the practice squad all year, the tight end, and they've elevated him. They elevated him for 2 games early. Then they finally signed him to the 53, and he and Jake have a really good connection from their practice squad reps in practice after the season started. So I think those 2 guys, Tanner Hudson and Trenton Irwin, are the 2 guys that could really help this offense get going.
Big picture real quick. I know you got half a season left here, a little less than half a season. What's their biggest need if you're looking ahead to the 2024 draft right now from where you sit right now?
Yeah, man, it's tough. Like I mentioned, Jonah's probably gone, so they're going to need a tackle. Awuzie is going to be a free agent. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go corner again, even though they love DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt. Another receiver, if T doesn't go, I mean, that's going to be a big, they're going to have some choices to make. They're going to need interior linemen. I mean, it's going to truly be a best player available because they're going to have plenty of needs. And it seems crazy because you look at how good this roster is overall right now, but this is what happens when you pay the quarterback and you're going to pay the wide receiver and make him the highest paid guy at his position. And Orlando Brown is up there too. There's hard decisions are coming and there's not going to be money in free agency to address them. So it's going to be a really, really interesting draft season for this team.
All right, Jay, how do you see this one going on Sunday in Cincinnati there? I don't know if you do score predictions or not. Feel free to throw one out there, but how do you see this one going?
So on my podcast, I was so close to predicting a 10-10 tie, but I just could not go there. I like the dangerous aspect of Jake Browning. I guess there's a dangerous aspect too with the Steelers having a new offensive coordinator, a new play caller. What's that going to look like? They're not going to change the offense, but right. the philosophy might change a little bit. The aggression might change a little bit. But I went 13-10 Bengals. This team rarely loses 3 in a row, even though they don't have Burrow. They are at home. The Pittsburgh offense, I don't think scares anybody. That could change Sunday because this Bengals defense has given up a lot of points, a lot of yards. But I think it's going to be one of those nail biter games and an Evan McPherson field goal at the gun.
All right. Tell people what you got going on over at Pro Football Network right now.
Yeah, so we have our podcast, the PFN Bengals podcast drops every Tuesday, posting about 3 or 4 stories a day, covering all angles on the team. Interesting story up right now where Jake Browning and Jonah Williams were high school teammates. They won a state title in California, won every game by at least 42 points, won the state championship game by 61. This will be the first time they've started a game together since that season. And then at Pro Football Network, everything's free. We have a ton of betting content up there, a ton of fantasy content. It's a one-stop shop for anything that you might be interested in NFL-wise.
Jay, we certainly do appreciate your time, especially the day after Thanksgiving here, and we'll try to send people your way on the Twitter machine and over to Pro Football Network to take in all of your content there. You've been a great guest on the Terrible Podcast, and happy holidays, and we may try to hook up with you later on in the season when these 2 teams get together. So thanks for being on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Yeah, Dave and Alex, thanks a lot for having me on. It was a good conversation.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Jay Morrison of Pro Football Network. Follow him on Twitter @byJMorrison. Check out the Bengals podcast every Tuesday, including this upcoming Tuesday after the Steelers and Bengals do battle. Dave, really good conversation with Jay. Had Jay been on before? I can't remember if we had Jay on before, but really good conversation with him.
I think he was a first timer, and so. He did a really, really good job. And obviously, he's very experienced. Been with several outlets over the years, and has covered that team for several years. So it was interesting to get. Paul. We tried to get our normal Bengals beat writer Paul Daner, but he is on vacation this week. So he did say to reach back out to him later on in the season there. But it was different. It was great having just a different voice in there this time.
For sure. All right, Dave, let's you and I preview this game. Of course, Pittsburgh 6-4 in this one. Bengals looking for a win after dropping that Ravens game and more importantly, losing Joe Burrow for the season. Bengals 5-5 on the season. Let's start with that Cincinnati offense led by now Jake Browning, who will make his first career start. But you and I talked about this before the podcast began. You know, it's a different feel compared to DTR. DTR, second start, yes, but a rookie 5th-round pick. Browning's been in the NFL since 2019. And just watching the second half of that Ravens game, it felt like he had control, autonomy over that offense. He ran it well, making checks, audibles, those types of things. So it's not Burrow, obviously, not even close, but it's not going to be this offense that feels like they can't win or, make their plays with Jake Browning in the lineup.
Yeah, look, and small sample size of him in that game against the Ravens, and as Jay pointed out, playing from behind and asked. Only so much you could ask him to do in that situation, because I would imagine most during practice is all designed around Joe Burrow. But look, he made some throws to the middle of the field. He tried to push the football down the field. You try early first snap, move him out of the pocket there, and kind of make an easy throw for him in that situation. Had some RPOs and all in there early on. I would expect early in this game for the Bengals try to lean on Joe Mixon with some of their gap runs, because they like to pull their offensive linemen as well there. And you probably see some RPOs to get them kind of settled into this game overall. Not having T. Higgins is going to be big in this game. Probably not a guy that you're lean on heavily to push it deep down the field with him. But my overall sense in watching those snaps against the Ravens was it too big for him?
Right, I'm with you. I mean, obviously the results weren't there, but it felt like he was in command and in control, and at least led a game, or not a game winning, but a touchdown drive at the end of that game, which I know was garbage time, but at least you have something to feel good about. You connected with Jamar Chase to finish that one off. I think the run game will still be important. They're going to run power to the boundary with Joe Mixon, bit of inside zone as well. Might see some RPOs in this game to kind of make some cleaner reads for Jake Browning. So some 2x2 kind of spreading the field out. No one attached to the formation, no tight end in line. Kind of moving those guys out to maybe either lighten the box or the run, or just kind of have almost a college feel of really, using the entire width of the field. So you may see that with Browning, some play action. I would expect some over routes. They'll align 3x1 and kind of run these crossers the other way, these bending routes to come, to the other side of the field. So I think you're going to see generally conceptually the same offense. Just the question is, how well can they execute?
Yeah, I would try to throw as many different looks as I could at him if I'm the Steelers defense in this, because I want to see how much he's actually, because he obviously hasn't played. He has been around the NFL for a while, but obviously has not played a lot. So I want to try to give him as many different looks and have him try to decipher some stuff on the go here. And look, I mean, is Jake Browning can still move. He's got some athleticism to him, so I don't know how much man you're actually going to play in this game overall. But within that, you're probably going to see Joey Porter follow Jamar Chase around quite a bit. But I would try to give Jake Browning as many different defensive looks as I could in this game.
I want to agree, but when you have a defensive secondary that's young, especially at safety, you wonder how many you want to keep things simple for your guys too. But yeah, the veteran guys in that secondary, they have to make plays. I'm looking at Patrick Peterson.
You can do it with different pressure looks, though.
Yeah, there's some pressure looks for sure, but just making sure things are communicated cleanly when you've lost so many of those central guys and Holcomb, Alexander, Minkah. You want to do some of that for sure. They're just aligned and a potential consequence to it. But I just want to see these veteran guys make a play, whether it's Casey or Peterson. They have to make these rookie quarterbacks or these young quarterbacks pay and make some plays on the football.
Well, look, you got to stop the run first and foremost with them, and that's what the Steelers say that the goal is every game. So you can't let Joe Joe Mixon come out early and start running downhill and get ahead of the chains, because that's going to make life that much easier for Browning at quarterback there. So you got to stop the run first and foremost. You can't let Jamar Chase get behind you in the passing game, and you can't let Jamar Chase get the ball running out in space overall. I think for them overall, and I mentioned this to Jay, Tyler Boyd could play a very significant role. I think Tyler Boyd could be one of the keys in this game for them offensively.
Okay. Do you think downfield? Because it feels like he's kind of become their possession receiver.
Right. But on possession downs, on third downs and things along those lines, especially in the makeable type situations there where you're not necessarily going to push the football down the field and have to get away from the run. You got to be on your screws when it comes to Boyd, because he can move the chains.
Sure. Peterson on Boyd, a couple of veteran savvy dudes. Might be some fun matchups. I think you also travel Porter on Chase, because you don't want Peterson on Chase. That's a matchup trying to run with him. That's going to be difficult on Peterson. So I think you try to get that guy inside. Watch out for the tight ends and just kind of the seam overall. You see Tanner Hudson making some plays. Jay mentioned Trenton Irwin in this one. Just watch out for kind of those seam balls from Jake Browning. He threw one, I think, against the Ravens that I think hit or almost was completed. He'll definitely test it.
And I envision them on offense saying, "Look, don't turn the football over." In other words, I expect them to be fairly conservative. I mean, they're going to have built-in shot plays and things as well too, as you would expect with them. But I envision them having a short passing game and just trying to get this thing to the fourth quarter as well too.
And they do a great job taking care of the football. I believe they only have 8 or 9 giveaways this year. Their turnover differentials +10. Only Pittsburgh is better in the NFL at +11. So both teams have really taken great care of the football. The Bengals have only had one game with more than one turnover all season. That's going to have to continue, of course, under Browning, a new quarterback in there, but they've done collectively a good job of that. Joe Mixon has not fumbled since 2021. So, I mean, just talk about some of those basic foundational things: ball security, keeping the ball, possessing the football. They do it well.
Can the Steelers' interior defensive line players make an impact against Volson and Karras and Kappa, who Kappa's not having as good a year as Jay pointed out there? That seems to be where they are indeed the most vulnerable there. So be a good week for Cam Hayward to do some of the things that we've seen him do to some left guards in the past, including
Volson in that week 1 last year. I mean, remember that the first play of the season was a sack, him walking Volson back. Next play was Minkah's pick 6. So Volson may be better this time around. It sounds like, according to Jay, that Volson's still having his struggles, has not made the jump that Bengals fans and coaches hope for. But yeah, got to collapse that interior pocket, because you got a couple good tackles in Brown, and Jay talked up Jonah Williams quite a bit. Now, of course, Highsmith and Watt have to make their plays, no excuses, but the interior line has to collapse things on Browning.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously your edge rushers are going to get the attention, as they should in this game. So you have to make your interior guys like Keanu Benton. I think Benton, and I'm still waiting for that one. I mean, he's played extremely well without a doubt, but could this be the game that 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a very, very impactful game by Benton?
Yeah, I mean, I think he could do well against these interior linemen that aren't quite as agile and quite as good in pass pro. So I think Hayward and Benton have to be, and Ogunjobi as well, have to be big time players.
Right. We could be talking a lot about the interior guys on that defensive line for the Steelers defense if things go right in this game.
All right, Dave, Cincinnati's defense, that front 7, it is interesting. Their run defense has been so poor, because that front 7, in terms of the individual people, is really quality. It's a strong defense line with Hill and Hendrickson. And if
Reader's a handful, Reader can be a handful too.
Big plugger with the run game. The linebackers are excellent. And Wilson, Jermaine Pratt's also made a ton of plays. Wilson gets the attention, but Pratt's come on strong the last 2 years. And yet, they're 31st in run defense in terms of allowing 5.0 yards per carry. They allow a lot of big plays. They certainly can be run on, which is good, because Pittsburgh, all they can do right now is run the football.
Yeah, and boy, we better come out of this game with them having another good run game overall, because once again, as you stated, this is where they seem vulnerable overall. Looking at rush directional for them, especially around the ends and off both tackle positions. They can be run on, and right guard as well too. Looking at running off right tackle specifically, 32 runs against that defense, which only ranks 11th overall, but 5.91 yards per carry that direction, worst in the league. Directionally when offenses have run towards their right tackle. And who plays right tackle for the Steelers now?
One Broderick Jones.
All right. So that's kind of, and I stated against the Browns the last couple of games, I think, run right. So I would look to have my right turn blinker on, because they're not overly great at right guard either. 41 runs, which I think is 5th most in the NFL on runs to right guard against that defense. 4.83 yards per carry, ranked 24th, and I would expect to attack that left end directionally as well too. They've had problems over on that side, giving up 6.83 yards per carry, 29th in the league. So just, top to bottom, run the football.
And I think some zone schemes in this one, as Jay talked about, some of the over pursuing from the Bengals, that's created cutback lanes. That's a Jaylen Warren type game because he's shifty. He's got great feet. He can cut things back. He may, and fans may not love it, but I think this is a chance to get the receivers in the run game. Calvin Austin, I watched the Texans run a reverse that went for good yardage. The Bengals completely over pursued on that one, and it went for a decent chunk of yards. So can you do a little bit of that in there to kind of maybe mess with the eyes of the Bengals and make those guys think? That's something I would explore.
How about some more of those tosses?
Yeah, you could do that with Warren. Although, again, the linebackers got to get a hat on Wilson and Pratt, because those guys can run. And the corners can run support. And, of course, Mike Hilton's there, and he's one of the better, run supporting corners. But, yeah, I think to me, I would go just kind of inside zone, gap scheme, and dart with the tackle, and then a receiver run action. That's kind of my base plan for the run game in this one.
Yeah, just some of the stuff that the Steelers, once again, the bread and butter that the Steelers have had in this run game, just eliminate the negative stuff.
Yeah, they have to. That is a must for sure. Secondary-wise, coverage-wise, we'll see the status of Taylor Britt. He's their top corner. If they're without him, that's going to be an issue. And to me, I know that, they talked up Dax Hill, and that was kind of they knew they were going to lose Bates at some point. That's why they drafted Hill. But I think losing those two guys, Bates and Bell, has really put strain and stress on that defense, and a big reason why you've seen regression this year.
They've given up some deep passes this year as well, too. Deep middle. Not that we're going to see a lot of it. Ranked 27th in the league, only 12 plays overall there. But deep right, especially if because Dutton, Taylor, Britt normally play on the left side of theirs, which would be a deep right. So they're figuring. And look, they're predominantly zone, but they will, I think, in key situations, situational downs, they'll play some man in this, so you might be able to attack them deep right in a lot of situations in this game and have some success.
Well, to me, I think the big thing to watch out for is those third down and pass situations, because they won't just play man; they will play cover zero. They will man up, and they will mug every single gap, and they'll play sticks cover the 3 or 4 DBs behind, and they'll drop a D tackler or linebacker out. But they will put some stress and really create some chaos. And when you're a Pittsburgh team on the road, a loud environment, you're in 3rd and 7, you're facing this all pressure, sim pressure type of look. How do you handle that? So obviously, the best way to handle it is staying out of those situations, but inevitably you're going to be in some of those situations. So how do you deal with those really aggressive looks that often become straight cover zero or maybe cover one with the linebacker dropping out as kind of a hole player? Kenny Pickett's going to have to really navigate those waters well.
I don't know if you saw it in that game against the Ravens. There was one instance where they send the guy off the corner, and the Ravens had 3 receivers to the right side of the formation there, and they tipped that off that they were sending the DB off the edge in that game, and it presented a 3-on-2 situation that Lamar Jackson missed on the deep corner on that situation there. So it seems like they might have a propensity to tip things way too early with some of their DBs coming off the edge. And if you overlook, if you run a 3-by-1 or something like that with your receivers, You got to see that kind of stuff.
Sure. I would just tell Kenny Pickett in the mission for how you build your plan is you have to know where your hot is, because they're going to bring some blitzes. They're going to run those cover zero looks. They're going to bring the corner. They're going to bring the safety. You got to know where the hot is and where that ball is going to go quick, because there are going to be many times in the play call, there has to be something built in. Okay, this guy's going to maybe convert his route, or he's going to get his head around quick because the ball is going to be hot. So it's not just on Pickett, but you have to know where the ball has to go against some of these blitzes, because there will be times where the Bengals are going to bring more people than you have in the block, and that ball has to be out immediately, and you have to know where it's going. Trey
Hendrickson's a monster you're going to have to control in this game. That's got to be that's their one guy. I mean, Sam Hubbard, I'm not taking anything away from him. We'll see if he even plays in this game on the other side over there, but Trey Hendrickson can ruin your day in a hurry.
Dan Moore is going to have to come up large. He's going to see Hendrickson most of the time. Hendrickson's been consistent and excellent, and a really good free agent signing for them over from New Orleans. So, yeah, I mean, you may see some chips, but hopefully you can do less chipping, because Pittsburgh had to do a ton of that last year. A lot of attention paid to those guys, Garrett Smith, et cetera. Understandably so, but it kind of limited your route tree because you had to keep those guys in the chip so much.
All right.
What else do I have here? Yeah, I think some cover six. They play quarters, so they make up their coverages pretty good. But I just look at the cover zero type stuff that can really make or break you.
All
right, Dave. Special teams as well. They got a really good coordinator over there. Their special teams coordinator's been there for like 15 years or so. So just watch out for that. Any other final thoughts here with this Bengals team?
No, not all. That Charlie Jones is fun to watch as a punt returner. So you got to tighten the screws on that.
Right. Pittsburgh had interest in him coming out of Purdue, and he's a pretty athletic guy. And I think, just to Jay's point, this is a desperate team, but also a team playing with house money, because no one expects them to win. So there's kind of some things working in their favor right now. All right, Dave, before we make our picks for the Steelers-Bengals game, before we make the rest of our picks for week number 12, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
All right, skip the arguments with Uncle Dave on Thanksgiving and the days after, and focus on what really matters. Good food, boosted odds, and hitting those Turkey Day parlays and Turkey Day weekend parlays. Picture this: not just watching the games, but turning every second into a potential win. With MyBookie, you can stream the games and live bet them, and turn any game day into a payday. Ready to up your game? Sign up today and make your first deposit with promo code TERRIBLE for a sweet deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code TERRIBLE to claim your bonus. This isn't just a promo code. It's your secret weapon to get the extra edge on the house. The best part is you don't need to be a sports whiz to win at MyBookie. You can cash in on everything from politics to your favorite shows and then some. Bet anything, anytime, and anywhere, only with MyBookie. Use promo code TERRIBLE and go to mybookie.ag today.
All right, and I think I had a clean sweep of my Thanksgiving plates, picking those three. I don't think you had you didn't go for seconds there, Dave.
No, I hit the 49ers game. That was the only one that I hit. I think you had the Cowboys covering as the favorite. You hit that, and you had the Packers covering as the underdog in that game against the Lions. So kudos to you for a clean sweep there. Let's look and see what
You're doing much better I think I'm still below 500 for the season, though. So on the year, I'm just taking my small wins when I can get them.
Yeah, and look, if you keep on with your hot hand the way you have in Thanksgiving here, you'll catch up in a hurry.
I'm the Jaylen Warren of this show right now.
There you go. All right, Miami Friday night football, Black Friday football. Miami Dolphins tonight against the New York Jets. The Dolphins are road 9.5 point favorites here.
Yeah, give me the Dolphins. Do you like this whole Black Friday game kind of deal, Dave, or you think it's a little too much?
I don't mind it. I mean, I'll watch. I love football, so but I don't have a problem with it there. I'll tune in. You're taking the Dolphins laying the 9.5?
Yes.
I will do the same. New Orleans Saints, a NFC South battle. New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints are road favorites by 1.5.
You know what? Give me Atlanta. I just got a feeling about this one.
I'll take the Saints and lay the 1.5 on the road there. Jaguars, AFC South battle. Jaguars go to Houston. The Jaguars are 1.5 favorites in this one on the road.
Going to be a fun one. Houston blew them out when they met before, so surprise Jacksonville is the favorite. This one's tough. I don't know. I'm going to go with my gut again. I love CJ Stroud. I'm going to go Jacksonville.
All right, I think we're being set up here with this line on the road here. So I'm going to take the Jaguars on the road to win by a field goal and cover that 1.5 there. Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts at home laying 2.5 points.
I'll take Tampa Bay. Their run defense is solid. Kind of make Minshew put some pressure on him. So I'll go Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think Baker maybe pulls this one out. So I will take the Buccaneers to win this one outright. So give me the 2.5 points. New England Patriots on the road against the New York Football Giants. Patriots who's going to play quarterback for them? I think that was the big question that nobody can get an answer for, unsurprisingly, when it comes to the Patriots. But the Patriots are road favorites by 3.5 points against Tommy DeVito, right?
Yeah, and this great performance that he had there in a game that we will not be watching, that's for sure. I don't know. I'll take the Patriots.
I'll begrudgingly take the Patriots as well, too. Patriots are coming off the bye, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
I'll take the Patriots lay to 3.5 points in this one along with you. Panthers on the road against the Titans. The Titans at home laying 3.5.
Carolina win one more game. Will Frank Reich get fired? They're really up against it. That Panthers run defense, I think, is better. I don't know. I'll take Tennessee.
I'll take Tennessee lay to 3.5 as well, too. The Cardinals are hosting the Rams. The Rams are 1.5 road favorites.
Not a lot of great games this weekend. It's looking like here we got spoiled by that Chiefs-Eagles game. I'll take the Rams.
I'll take the Rams, cover that 1.5 on the road. Browns on the road against Denver. Closer spread than probably what you might think because of that Browns defense, but obviously the quarterback situation there. The Broncos are 1.5 home favorite versus the Browns.
I know how meager that Browns offense looked, but that defense is still elite, and they're better than either side of the ball. The Denver has offense, defense. I'm going to go Cleveland.
I'll go Denver it wouldn't be an upset because they're favored, but I think Denver maybe pulls this one out late in a low scoring game. So I'll lay the 1.5 there. What should be a good game. Buffalo Bills at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles pulling one out against the Chiefs the other night. The Eagles are 3-point home favorites against the Bills.
Yeah, they play a bit cleaner football overall. Give me Philadelphia.
I'll take the Bills in an upset here. So I'll take the 3 points there. The Raiders are hosting the Chiefs. The Chiefs are road favorites by 9 points against the Raiders.
Chiefs kind of some cracks in their game right now. I think they're like Buffalo where they need that other weapon. They have like a top dude, obviously, in Kelsey. The Bills have Diggs. You don't have those other kind of options. They drop a ton of passes. Still, actually, do the Raiders play the Chiefs well? These are all questions I should have known before we started the show. Give me Kansas City.
I'll take the Chiefs to win, but the Raiders plus the 9 there. Baltimore Ravens on the road against the Chargers. The Ravens are 3.5-point road favorites against the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Baltimore. Give me the Ravens.
I'll take the Ravens to lay the 3.5 points there. And finally, before we get to the Steelers game, the Bears on the road against the Vikings. The Vikings are 3-point home favorites.
I'll take the Bears. I'll say the Bears find a way to at least cover this one.
I'm not going against Joshua Dobbs. I'll take the Vikings lay the 3 points there. That circles us back to the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Steelers are 1.5 road favorites in this one.
Always nervous about these games, especially seeing what happened against Cleveland. Backup quarterback doesn't mean you're going to win this game. I think the Bengals have a strong front seven on paper in terms of the individual players, but their run defense has really struggled. I think Pittsburgh will be able to make some plays. They got to get a couple of picks off one of these backup quarterbacks, you would think. So, and just kind of maybe that breath of fresh air that Faulkner and Sullivan can breathe into this offense. Not that I'm expecting a huge turnaround or giant production, but just there's some benefit to that, I believe. So I got Pittsburgh in this one, Dave, 20-17 over the Bengals.
I got it close to your score there. I think they get a little jump in their step. They fix a few things that have been going wrong overall. Playing against an inexperienced quarterback in Browning, I think obviously favors the Steelers in this one. I think they can shut that run game down. I think they can get a couple of takeaways on defense there, make a couple more explosive plays, hopefully on offense here. I have them even cracking the 20 mark in this one. Probably a defensive touchdown for the Steelers or something. 22-17 in 22. This one. Yeah, look, you make changes for a reason. They better respond to it. This is a very winnable game for the quarterback situation alone. Sure. I think. Give me the Steelers doing, looking a little bit better overall on both sides of football. 22-17.
How are they getting to 22? Get like a safety or a bunch of field goals or missed extra point?
You know me and these odd scores.
You love the score.
I love these odd scores because even though you don't hit them most of the time, the one time that you can do is the most you have the recent bias going on in there. You say, oh, well, Dave called that one.
I assume that's not scoregami. You're like a scoregami, I think, fiend. You're looking for it.
I wouldn't imagine 22-17 scoregami, right?
How often do you think 22-17 happens, though? I mean, I'm researching this. I promise we're going to get the answer.
I am going to guess 43 times.
Oh, I don't think it's that many. I think it's like 15 max, but let's see. You think 43 times, 22-17 final, 22 times, 22-17 has happened, funny enough. Last time it happened, it's happened earlier this year, the Vikings beating the 49ers. It looks like 22-17. Has Pittsburgh ever been in a 22-17 game? These are all important things for us to find out. It does not actually. They in 2010 they lost to the Jets 22-17.
Okay.
All right. Good information. That's entirely useless for you guys, but there you go. All right, Dave. Those are our picks for the week. Let's get to a couple of your emails and close out today's show.
Let's see if we have a few new ones here. Bryce writes in. Based on Sullivan's past, what are some tendencies and things he likes to call? What would you say his personality has been as a previous play caller? I mean, you got to go back several years for that. I haven't even. It's been a while since I looked at Mike Sullivan as a play caller with tendency. I mean, it's impossible really to, because look, I mean, I think you got to look at this schematically for offense and how we're not expecting a lot of changes overall. I mean, you'd have to drill this down, maybe what he likes to call situationally. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer. You could refer back to the article I wrote after he got hired as quarterbacks coach entitled Film Room, How Quarterbacks Coach Mike Sullivan Will Teach the Steelers' Next Franchise Arm. He goes to his family of coverages and the way that you kind of read things pre-snap, post-snap, anticipate rotations. That's kind of more of a nuts and bolts. I think he's a disciplined, technical detail guy. I mean, he was literally in the Army and coached there and I believe played there. And I think he's kind of a stickler for those types of things and just doing the foundational things correctly. But I've probably not done the level of research to talk about his philosophy, big picture as an OC. But I do have a pretty detailed film room from a clinic that he did, kind of teaching the basic coverages and how those things work.
He writes, TJ said the defense has to do a better job with the quick and shorter passing game. So what would you like to see Austin and Tomlin do differently to take away these shorter type of throws?
Well, from a pass rush standpoint, it's hard to really get pressure when the ball's coming out in 2.1 seconds. So as they talked about getting your hands up, batting balls is kind of maybe the next best thing you can do. And of course, stopping the run to put teams in the second and third and long where they can't utilize the short passing game, where you invite that, you allow it, throw short on 3rd and 11, that's fine. But other than that, and maybe corners take chances, depends on the coverage you want to play behind. But I think basically comes down to stopping the run to eliminate the short passing game.
Right. Get them out of situationals where that'd be beneficial for them if they even complete them.
Right. Exactly.
Let's move on here to Jeff Berg, middle of the field and wide open receivers. Happy post-Thanksgiving after watching football all day. 2 common questions. reared their heads. Question 1, why is it that every team can use the whole field in a passing game and the Steelers seem to be unable to? Throws to the running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers over the middle are commonplace. Seam routes, tight ends leaking out, running backs running angle routes. Why, basically, look, I mean, that it's the age-old question. Why haven't the Steelers been using the middle of the field more?
I wish I had an answer. I mean, if I had that, I'd bottle it and sell it, man. To Pittsburgh specifically. I mean, I think there's, some lack of talent. Tight ends have been hurt. Austin, I don't think Pittsburgh knows what to do with Calvin Austin right now. I don't know if they know how he wins and how he can work in this offense. But some of it can be scheme, what defenses are doing, but it's been going on for a long time now, even before Kenny, before Canada. I don't have a good answer.
All right, Brandon Fry. Let's see, this is from a couple of days ago. He says, "Hey guys, big fan, keep up the great work. You said something on the post-Canada firing discussion that I can't help but disagree with when you said ultimately it doesn't matter if the decision came from Rooney or Tomlin. To me, the way the Steelers operate with these big decisions is the most important thing concerning the franchise. If you are of the opinion that a huge issue with this team for years on end is how Tomlin picks his offensive coaching staff," he says, "I am, then I would love to know if he was overridden and the decision came from the top. I personally think Tomlin has some big strengths, but please Steelers, for God's sake, help with some of these macro level offensive stuff." Just my 2 cents. So he's saying that it basically, long story short, he puts a lot of weight in who the decision came from when it came to firing and hiring.
I get that.
Rooney or Tomlin.
Sure. And when I said it doesn't matter, I guess I was more to the point of, okay, he's gone, they're moving on. Let's see what the new version looks like with Faulkner and Sullivan. But I understand the point there. The reporting has really indicated, I think Diana Rossini had the report that it did basically stem from Tomlin. There was a conversation with Art Rooney prior to the actual firing taking place to kind of, I guess, get his blessing. But if you believe that report, and Rossini's pretty solid, it was Tomlin that basically was the catalyst to that decision.
All right. I haven't spent a lot of time anymore thinking about it other than they've gone a different direction now. Let's see. I think we got through all of them, caught up for the most part. We're running a little bit long on this Friday as usual because of the guest and all. So it's probably a good time to wrap things up. And we will be back on Monday to talk about Steelers versus Bengals result. Hopefully, they need this one, don't they? Oh boy, do they need this one.
They do. It's going to be a long Monday if they lose to the Bengals, Dave. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and especially if Baltimore and Cleveland win their games and all. And look, you're doing a little bit of scoreboard watching at this point with some of those other teams in there fighting for a wild card position, and they really need this one. It'd be great for us to be talking about 5, 7, 8 point winner and Kenny looking, Kenny looking better overall. So here's the hoping we have an optimistic outlook coming out of this game overall, and more importantly with a W. So until Monday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Find the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. Shout out again to Jay Morrison for joining us today. Get on the Twitter machine and thank him for his time if you get a chance to do so, and hopefully you have a great rest of your holiday weekend here as well. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.